Good afternoon to Maxine. Shondell Phillips, good afternoon to you out there in Barbies, Guyana. Good afternoon to Miss Maxine Tekor. Yeah, what a blessed Father's Day greetings going out to each and every family right now.
I have two people who want to say good afternoon.
Yes, send them on. Open your mic and let them talk.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon to you, sir.
How is Guyana? And wherever everyone from.
Well, I am in UK. It is, let me see, it kind of dark outside. It's 8:03 in the UK in the night.
Okay. Okay.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you.
They're just giggling. Oh, life.
Yes, good afternoon to Trinidad and Tobago, Sir Joel and his whole crew. We know and I hear them song this long time.
I wanna where my brother is gone. I wanna where my brother is gone. I feel so fine that you saw me kind out from heaven. Peter, going them down. Peter, going.
Good afternoon, everyone.
Yes, we're about to start, so everybody can mute your unmute your mic, and then you will mute them afterwards.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone.
Jonelle, unmute your mic, Miss Carrington, Miss Griffith. Unmute your mic so we can get it going.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our program, Swinging of the Pendulum. First of all, I must say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers who are listening, who are in a midst. Sir Joel, you would have taken a step to push this program today. I must commend you as a father to do something like this, not only for your kids, but for the kids at large to know how important it is to understand or to embrace technology and to know what it is to be educated in a pandemic and also moving forward. What do you have in store for them? And our panelists today, you will hear more from them. That is from Sir Joel, Miss Shonda Phillips, followed by Miss Shauna Torrington Griffith. Ladies and gentlemen, these panelists, they are very passionate to share with you what it is to work in a pandemic as a drama, music, language lecturer, and what it is they have in store to offer as they move forward. So I'm not going to say more. I'm going to open the floor to the three panelists and let them have a nice discussion with you. I know that This program is saved on YouTube and it will share eventually. So let us get it going. Thank you. Over to Sir Joel.
Thank you, Dr. Volder, um, uh, Miss Thornton Griffith, Miss Shondell Phillips, Mr. Shem, our DJ, and to all the other participants, good afternoon and welcome to our panel discussion. I am going to be very brief with you. First of all, let me just tell you briefly about me. I grew up in the village of Haslington. Uh, I'm getting an echo. I don't know. This is my speaker. All right. Right. So I grew up in the village of Haslington. My formal education was in right in the village, just opposite me, Golden Grove Secondary. And then I moved on to Cyril Potter College of Education, where I completed my teacher's training certificate. And then I moved on to the University of Guyana, BA History Language. And before I moved to Trinidad,
Dr. Voller, turn off him. Everybody else turn off the mic, please, because it picking up Sir Joel.
yeah,
Please.
that's a problem I normally would have. I don't
No,
know.
everybody has got to turn off their mic.
Thanks, everyone.
Dr. Voller, turn off him.
All right. Well, you hear me better now? Yes? Okay. So I like I said, prior to that, I also taught in from Golden Grove Secondary. I taught at Annandale Secondary. That was my last stint. I was head of department of the Allied Arts department. Then I moved to Trinidad, continued teaching. Um, but during my course here, it took me across the country having to visit schools as a training officer. And I think that was a great experience because it gave me an opportunity to interact with teachers and to know of some of the concerns they have, and in some cases, wherever assistance could have been given. I'm presently a coordinator, or what some people might call a vice principal of a secondary school, of which I continue to teach music. Um, and I also do part-time at the Government Polytechnic Institute where I teach language. And I am a Calypsonian, of course, of which, I have a passion in that I really enjoy doing. And basically, that's it from me. Okay, as we go along, you will get to learn a little bit. The program is not really about me, it's about what we have to offer. So I'll pass you over to Miss Phillips.
Okay, good afternoon. I'm Shondell Phillips from the best part of Ghana, the East, where the wise men who bore gifts for the newborn babe way back in the days of Bethlehem came from the East. That's Berbice. I have a passion for the arts, passion for drama, maybe as soon as I could have stopped or as soon as I could have walked. But this came to fruition when I was finished my tertiary education, and I'm now an external examiner with the Caribbean Examinations Council, supervising practicals in the schools. I'm a lover of life. I love working with young people. I love seeing things happen, making things happen, even though you get into lots of trouble from time to time. But then if you don't do that, what is life? a mother of one, and just trying to make a difference as I go along, making a difference in the lives of the people whom I encounter. When they leave, they must remember Miss Shondell for something positive. Joel is smiling. So that's my introduction. So I'll hand you over now to Miss Griffith, is her name, Shauna.
Yes, thank you very much. So my name is Shauna Thornton Griffith. I am Georgetown to the bone. I've gone to school in Georgetown and everything in Georgetown. I attended St. Stanislaus College, and then I worked a bit with the Ministry of Education, went on to CPC where I met Joel, and he has always gotten me to do things, sing as backup dancing, his calypso in college and all of that. After CPC, where I did English secondary level, I attended the University of Guyana. So I did always was encouraged by Ms. Baca at CPC to do Spanish. And I told her, I'm not going to do Spanish because my brother had just graduated from UG with all the President's Medal and all of that. And I thought I had someone I can lean on. So I'm like, I'm afraid to do Spanish at CPC level, but I went to UG and I did Spanish. After the University of Guyana, I was head of department for Christchurch Secondary School for modern languages. When I left Guyana, I was the vice president for Guyana Association of Modern Language Tutors, French, and also a Spanish oral examiner for CSEC. I'm presently doing my PhD in teacher education, curriculum, and instruction, but I did a master's in linguistics as well as in Latin American studies. So now I'm in the data collection study. I have a flyer at the end of it all, but I love working with technology. I love having an interactive classroom and using technology to teach languages. So more or less computer assisted language learning. So I always try to bring some amount of technology into the language classroom, and it's for English language learners or learners of a second language. And basically that's my introduction and a whole lot about me, and we'll jump right into what is it we have to do.
Thank you, panelists. All English, lover of life, lover of music, lover of language. We, the public, would like to hear more of about how you would have embraced the pandemic, and how you transitioning out of the pandemic based on your area of focus. Remember, our students are preparing to write CSEC. Some of them are in the fourth form, fifth forms, and we have teachers. We need to know more. We need to hear from you. So those who's from the East, those who's from East Coast, those who's Georgetown to the bone, and we all are Guyanese, we need to hear from our Guyanese counterparts how to move forward in this pandemic, post-pandemic era. Over to the panelists.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Volder. I will start the ball rolling, being the lone male on the panel. Right? Nonetheless, today my presentation will be focusing on basically how, one second, I'm trying to share a screen. Is it possible? Are you all seeing
Yes,
me?
Joel, we're seeing you.
You're seeing me. Okay, great. Right. So here I am. Right. My focus is going to be on the state of educational technology in the post-pandemic world. Now, mind you that the pandemic is not over as yet. But we have to be optimistic. All right. We cannot wait until the time is at hand and then we try to scramble like we normally do, because I strongly believe that COVID caught all of us. And as a result, I would have decided to focus my intention on educational technology. And once time permits, I will go a little bit into the entertainment world. So, most of you will agree with me that 2020 is the year where the world would have seen the greatest rise in the use of educational technology. It is a period when COVID-19 pushed schools globally to go remote, as well as it forced educators and students to become more reliant on technology. And we have all become more reliant, even more than before. The transition of this learning environment also revealed new insights into the state of technology in schools. Now, some of my findings you will find significant to my area of study, but my colleagues will also carry the same mantle and they will focus specifically on their areas of study. However, I want to make this clear that we are working together, and our intention is that when this lecture overs, we have some kind of a solution, at least some ideas to work with as we move forward. The education system around the world is evolving at an unprecedented rate. However, we can never do away with the traditional ways of learning. Had it not been for these methods of learning, many of us could not have become who we are today. Nonetheless, to get a clearer picture of what the state of EdTech looks like in a post-pandemic world and how schools can prepare for the future, I wish to present the following. Now, a number of studies were done around the world by educators, by various tech companies, by various ministries, and so on. And many of them came up with a lot of solutions that are common. All right. For example, in Trinidad and Tobago, a survey is still on in terms of how to deal with, for example, the pandemic and school dropouts. We have been told only up to yesterday that we have approximately 2,000 students who would have dropped out of our system. And so we have to now find ways to get them back as soon as possible. I must tell you that right now in Trinidad and Tobago, our borders are still closed. So there are no, and this is as soon as the pandemic started. So we have been in a lockdown ever since. As I speak to you, we are in a state of emergency. It started at 10 o'clock this morning and it will end at 5 tomorrow. So we are all locked in. The reason being our cases are still not at an acceptable rate. And I believe an acceptable rate will be when we can safely say no more COVID. But we are trying, and we hope that we are, like I said, we are optimistic that this can be over pretty soon and we will get back on track, getting our students back into schools, getting our theaters back up and running, and all the things that we are accustomed to, which we call the norm. All right. But in our little research, in our discussion, and in my personal readings, I found a number of things, and I will put them into 4 headings. I found 4 headings that I believe that are the major issues that we faced during this period, or these are the major issues that we encountered, and some of us are still going through. The first one is that there are a number of disparities in digital access, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, not only in Guyana, but across the world. Uh, Teachers are saying that this is one of the greatest areas that affected our students and students' success, simply because many of our students just did not have a device, a homebound device, or some just didn't have connectivity. Teachers themselves complained of not being properly trained. Not only did they complain, but being a manager of a school, when they call upon you, you cannot tell them you don't know. So you had to find some kind of a solution to ensure that the teacher becomes confident with whatever they have to do. So the challenges were great. And I have been told, for example, in Guyana, where they have in the hinterland areas in particular, where there's a lack of internet access, connectivity, and so on, that our hinterland students suffered the greatest, simply because of the area that they live, and just because of the fact that they had little or no access. Here in Trinidad and Tobago, it's similar, but we also had some challenges where some students just did not have a personal device. We still have that problem, and I believe that is one of the major issues why we have over 2,000 students dropping off of our list. So in addition to that, we found that there was a lack of technology resources. Now, I know my colleagues, they have a whole list, because they are going to actually go specifically into what they do in their areas. But I'm going to generalize. We found that there was a lack of softwares, mobile apps, blogs, edtech books, online learning platforms. Thanks to Zoom and Google Classroom, I believe those are the two most common, but I can assure you there are much more out there that are yet to be discovered, which can make life even easier for us. We also found that social media communities were lacking. I know, for example, almost all of us, we have either a Facebook or a Twitter account. But how many of us, and I'm speaking here also to our students, how many of us are in social communities, like let's say a drama group, a language arts group, mathematics group, that can help us in our line of study, our area of study of our area where we basically deliver a curriculum, right? It is believed that that is still lacking. I know some of us, social media is just to relax and entertain, but you can also learn a lot from those very platforms. I've also realized that there's a large dent in the system, simply because there's a lack of conferencing and events like these. And I believe this is one of the reasons why Dr. Elliott would have decided to pull this together, simply because it is lacking. And more of this is needed, however. Also, we found that podcasters, and I became one, I didn't even know that, where I would have used some of my material via YouTube, where you record something and you put it out there. And only this afternoon in my discussion that my son reminded me, but Daddy, remember we did TikTok too. So even to TikTok, even though it's an entertainment app, it can be also used for learning. So there was a great degree of a gap, I will say, in digital access. But I trust that in the near future, that ministries, and for those of you who runs like an education district and so on, or just simply if you once you have authority in managing, that you can influence the support of probably getting getting especially our students access to these devices. What we started here in Trinidad is a little drive where the government supported some of the schools as well as members of the community. Sometimes they just ended up buying a few gadgets and distributing them, donating them. All right, so I'll move to my second point. I also found that we need to prioritize in edtech investments generally. Now, I know, for example, in our school we use a lot of the whiteboards, electronic boards, and so on. But that's when you're in the school. The Promethean board is one of preference here. But I wouldn't want to suggest that we just go right away and invest in those high-tech boards. A number of schools would have already have access to the normal desktop and the laptop computers. So if we can invest a little bit more, because one of our surveys showed that the most used device would have been the desktop and the laptop as against the tablets and so on, simply because the laptops and the desktops can do a little bit more than what the tablets can do. So again, we need to prioritize. We wouldn't want to just say in our schools, because like I said in my introduction, we are not going to, we cannot do away with the traditional ways of learning, but technology is here and it is here to stay, and we just have to embrace it. Which leads me to my third point, that effective technology learning for teachers continues to be lacking. And it's across the boards. I listened to a lecture only last week where one of our presenters said that, listen, because of age, she basically had to bow out. She basically had to give up because she found that the advancement of technology was leaving her, and she was of a certain age, and she didn't plan to retire, but eventually she did. All right, that is unfortunate. But I have worked with some people, and I've seen the drive with some people to learn. So I want to encourage, and even to our young people, some young educators are saying, well, this is not for me, and so on. I myself at one point was thinking that, a certain level is not really for me. But COVID has actually brought us to that standpoint where we have to now say, listen, you either take it or leave it. And so training must be continuous, and it must be very to the point, based on what is being used within the schools. I have a mantra that says every community or every country have a different culture. Now, that doesn't mean whatever happens in the United States or Canada, whatever works there, most likely will work for you or for us. So sometimes we will have to break it down to suit the niche, I would say the customer, right? Or the stakeholders. So we have to be mindful as well when we are doing the training, what type of an investment we are going to make so that it can benefit at the end of the day our children. And my fourth point is that we all at some point will now have to embrace technology, simply because it is here and it is here to stay. I know of a number of schools and a number of educators who thought that they could not have reached where they are now. But look, as I speak to you, my entire working day is from my home. And that has been for the last 3 terms, which means that At some point, even though I complain, I tried being very nice, not wanting to wear glasses, simply because I am still trying to tell the eyes, you know what, you don't need to you don't need to wear them. But we need to embrace technology because it is here to stay, and we don't want the younger ones to just bypass us. We have to show that we are relevant too. And I also have another mantra that says, and my students would normally ask me why I will say this, and I know we have some students on board. The teacher is not greater than the student, nor the student greater than the teacher, because each one teach one. And that's a mantra I've been using, and I believe it works because I do not see myself as being over my students. I allow them to feel comfortable, and there are times when I learn from them. And I'm sure among our participants today, when that time comes for you to share, we're going to hear from some students, and they're going to have ideas as well that can be used. All right. So we're not going to put them aside. We're going to keep them there because this whole thing is really about them, because we have to leave this world for them. They are the ones who are going to be children of the future. So we have to make sure that we set for them a good foundation. How is my time going? Could I take another 5 minutes? Hello?
I would think so, Joel.
Okay, excellent. Which means that I can go to the last slide.
Go to the last slide. I think
Yes.
I think
Yes, I go to the last slide, right? The last slide now speaks about entertainment, and I'll be very, very brief with this one. Basically, around the world, streaming is the future. Evidence has shown that companies like Disney Plus and Netflix were very successful during 2020 with movie streaming. And so we have to be mindful of what happens there. We're not saying we're going to do away with traditional theater, but streaming definitely is one of the ways we're going to go. And the last one is that we should, as far as possible, diversify the creative economy. And I'm speaking here, for example, like we know that in Guyana we have our little we have festivals such as Mashramani and Carnival. Same thing here in Trinidad. Around the world we have carnivals too. But we are not going to get back to that big move right away. So we're going to have to start again in our small communities. And this is where the theaters will come in. If we don't support them, then there's nobody else to. It starts at home. So when in the communities they have a little show, a little production, even if it's from a school point of view, then we need to support them, and eventually it will grow. And we also need to diversify in a sense that not only should we be accustomed having our traditional festivals, but we can now break them down. And for example, I'm always seeing a village like some village on the East Coast having something called like a village fest, where one day you can have music, another day you can have the arts, where you can have both drama and you can have displays, another day you can have poetry, and you blend them together, but you call them some kind of festival, and then you move from village to village. So you have to find new things, new ways, or else everything might crumble. But I am of the view that we are very resilient. We will beat this pandemic by the grace of God, and very soon things will get back to normal. But in order for us to get there and get there successfully, we have to follow our basic protocols, as well as put the measures in place so that we can all enjoy this beautiful world together. I thank you. I believe our next presenter will be Miss Shondell Phillips. Just for the members of the audience, we would like to take your questions, but we will try to hold them if you want to make some notes, and then we'll have the discussion after. So we would just want everyone to do their presentations first, and then we will have our discussion. All right, so over to Ms. Phillips.
Okay, Joel. I was thinking opposite of what you were saying, seeing that your discussion was so exemplary and so focused, and persons may have questions in their minds relating to what you had just said. I was thinking maybe we could have allowed a question or two.
I have no problems.
Yeah, and then I move into what I was going to do. So if there's anyone who has, I hand the floor back over to you to find out if anybody has a question.
Okay, yes, I'm seeing the hand of Mr. Torrington.
Hi, Mr. Gonzalez. Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for a wonderful presentation. I was kind of struck by your very relaxed and lucid manner in which you made your presentation, and very, very clear points. So thank you very much. One of the core points you made is in relation to the digital gap. And it's kind of
Ambassador,
interesting.
we're not seeing your face. We're just seeing the top of your head.
Oh, I wasn't sure that I needed to put on camera. So you're not gonna see my head. just my voice, because I'm actually relaxing while participating. So thank you for allowing the intervention, Ms. Gonzalez. The aspect of the digital gap, it is interesting because I think we had more or less understood technology as such a wonderful opportunity, when we started with technology. But what the COVID-19 situation has done, in essence, as you pointed out, Joel, is really that it has confirmed that gap has become more entrenched. It is just as pervasive as before. I know you mentioned in your presentation a couple of things, but from your very good vantage, how can we really, in a strategic way, begin to actually remove that gap? Because not just, catch up, but can we actually remove that gap? So that would be my question. And again, to commend you on a wonderful presentation. How can we, strategically in the educational setting, I'm more from the development side, but it's a discussion that is allied and I'm very interested in, but how can we really, in a meaningful manner, begin to make a dent in the gap that is obviously there and that clearly is disadvantaging our societies and our students? Thank you very much.
Thank you for your question, Mr. Thornton. That's a really valid question at this point. Like I said before, I do believe that I said that we should not do away, or we can't do away with the traditional ways of learning. We are more going to be seeing a blend of the two, both digital and the tradition, which is the chalk and talk method, all right, as well as with the additional textbooks and so on. However, interestingly, I learned something in Guyana, that they have something called the QuizMe platform. The QuizMe platform is basically helping students with CXC. And from the minister's point of view, I think she boasted that it's one of the platforms that also caters for children with visual impediment. And when I heard it, I said, yes, these are the things we have to look at. right? Because technology, like I said, is here to stay. And that is one good step because many a times persons who have this learning disabilities are left behind. And so I'm extremely excited to see what they are doing. I have just one concern though, and my little concern is plagiarism because many a times you would have taken your time, prepare your stuff. I remember sharing in a session, and I'm accustomed to my traditional way. Take some time and copy the notes. Now, all the students watching me, so I'm like, but why are they looking at me? Only to realize as fast as I put up the information, they screenshot it. So they have it there already, and that's their way of learning. They are no book. They already had the thing screenshot there, and they're coming back at you next week for more. Right? It has its advantages and disadvantages, but we cannot move away from the traditional way, so we will have to find ways to blend the two. Okay? Thank you so much, Mr. Thorington. Any
Thank
other
you.
before I move on? I would really like to hear from the others, so I will take a pause on questions, and if you have any other, we can always do a discussion after. So let me put you back to Miss Phillips.
Have a hand up, Joel. There's a
Sorry,
hand up.
I'm so sorry, Miss Antoina Fisher. You can go right
Good
ahead.
afternoon, everyone.
Good
Good
afternoon.
afternoon. First, I must say Happy Father's Day to all the fathers and the fathers from all
Thank
parts of
you.
the world. My concern as a teacher, I'm a primary teacher teaching at present grade 3 at a primary school in Guyana. But what is really happening is that teaching my class, I have a class that's of 25 pupils. And due to this pandemic, what I have noticed is that teaching online using technology is that I really can't reach out to all 25 pupils. As it stands now, I am like getting like just let's say 12 out of the amount, which is less than half that usually works online. Now the parents would give a variety of reasons. Um, Lack of devices, lack of internet, and a whole set of different circumstances due to work and so on. But as a teacher, I'm worried, and I would pose the question to my head teacher from time to time that what is it that we can do? And I'm just asking your advice on this. Maybe you might have some ideas to share with me to help me to reach out to at least more of them because in the next 2 to 3 weeks, school is about to close and they will have an end of term test where they will have to do it online. And it saddened me to know that few of actually half of them they're not working. Maybe I assume that some of them they're going to other lessons and so on, but we're having a problem there also with communicating with the children. We're not hearing from them. And so it worries me as a teacher because I'm wondering, let's say for example, come September, school would not be able to open. I'm just saying, and we have to work like this again. What is it we're going to do? This is how we're going to continue? Actually, the Ministry of Education, they used to give us the hard copies of the worksheet, and we find that children work better using the hard copies of the worksheet. But we're given the soft copy at present. They're not given the hard copies. Some parents who can afford to take it up on themselves to print the hard copies, like myself, I do it as a parent for my child. But then there are some children who are at a disadvantage. So I'm just sharing it out. So maybe you can help me or give me some ideas or some ways how I can meet out to some of my pupils that I'm not getting onto. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Fraser. Again, another valid question. What platform are you using to teach?
At present, I am using the online platform, and I would be in school every Friday to mark, to do all marking, checking, or meeting with parents and children who may have problems. But as I said, maybe you would only see half the amount
Right.
or less.
Now, you're not alone. We have those problems here too. One of the things I can recommend is, you see, it's like a student will tell you when you ask them at the end of the day, you understand? Yes, miss. Yes, sir. And they go on. My philosophy is, unless the last child doesn't understand, I'm not going to go to the next topic, no matter how long it takes. And I remember in my introduction, when I spoke of the digital divide, I made mention of teachers having, well, I probably didn't bring it over in this way. A lot of times we tend to complete a syllabus, but has learning really taken place? And so we ourselves, we have to be conscious. And I know we are hard pressed by the ministry. Between X amount of time, you have to do X, Y, Z. And I'm glad you asked this question, because being a training officer and going into schools, when we had the face-to-face interaction, those problems were there. And even now that we are online, it's even worse. So sometimes the socioeconomic background of the child has a very serious bearing in terms of them participating in education. Some of them are going through some really, really tough times. And one of the things I took upon myself, the school that I am teaching at is in a ghetto area. All right.
Okay.
But you know what? I was telling someone in a lecture the other day that God forbid, if my car should shut down, everybody in that area will come and assist me. You know why? Because it's not that you want to have friends with a gangster or a gunman, but simple things like water is a big issue here in Trinidad. And some people live by the school because they depend on the school water. Some of them depend on the water to even bathe. And I remember one morning going into school, and there was this young man, he just wanted some water to bathe. What would you tell him? Would you turn him back? I mean, I had to tell him, I said, listen, nobody, the school, you don't have enough students yet. They have a little hole they could jump through. I said, hustle quick, but don't make it a second time. It made a difference, because the next time I saw them and I asked for something for the school, I was able to get everybody to assist, because so does help you out when the time comes. It's not that you want to encourage bad behavior, but if you're in a community, you have to make sure that the community serve as a school. You are there to serve the people. All right.
Okay.
So what you do is try to develop a better relationship, or an even closer relationship with your parents or the members of your community. In that way, you'll get a little bit more to find out a little bit more about your children, so that you can, get a little bit more assistance for them. Sometimes the children are just hungry. We have a school feeding program here, and if that program doesn't run, you're not getting students to come to school. So there are many, many factors that, besides the norm that we were accustomed to, that can affect a child from learning. And one of it, like I said, better your relationship with your parents, have more one-on-one with them in a kind of nice tact way, and you will see how much more you can get. Sometimes you have to go. Yes.
Actually, I have a good relationship with my parents, and
Very good.
They would come and they would really explain to me what really are the problems. They highlight it to me. So that's the reason I'm telling you, I'm kind of concerned, because remember, the parents would have come, they explain what is the situation. I understand. It's sad when you have to listen to some of it, and then you're wondering, now how can I help?
Yes.
My HM was saying, we got to go visit them in the community where they're living.
Sometimes
but in
that
some of
work,
the communities, they're I don't mind, but some of the communities, the part that they're not the community, the streets and so on, that they're living are not too safe.
Do you all have counselors at the school, social welfare officers?
We have, not at the school directly, but they have the Ministry of Education, they have the welfare welfare officers and so on there. So you
Maybe
can,
they are too far from you all. They need to get into the schools because
right.
sometimes some of these issues are beyond our uh, our level, right?
Yes.
We are teachers, we are parents, we are counselors, we are fathers, we are everything,
Yes.
right? So you are doing a good job. I must commend you for what you are doing. But next time you chat with the principal, try other stuff. Try seeing how much you can get as a social welfare officer to come in, have a little talk. Sometimes there's so many ways, but that's another way as well that you can approach it. But again, be tact, and I know teachers are good for that. So you are on the right track, though. I'm happy. I'm happy that you're making such an effort to do so much for your children. Um, that's what a teacher is all about. Like I said, a teacher is everything. A teacher is a counselor. A teacher is a parent. A teacher is a medical doctor. We do everything. So continue. You are doing a wonderful job as a teacher. I'm happy to hear that. But you know, every time you meet, you try a new strategy. If that doesn't work, you try something else again. All right. So thank you for sharing.
Thank you, Sir, Sir Gonzalez. And I know that the questions are coming, but we have our other panelists and they're gonna pull the information and we're gonna tie it. Thank you, tie it up. Thank you very much, Sir Joel. Over to your next panelist, Sir Joel.
Okay, good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone. Are you hearing me?
Loud and clear.
Okay. Following up on Sir Joel's presentation, and in light of our attention deficit constraints, I'm going to focus on the area of theater arts as it related to the examinations, the students' preparation for examinations, as was witnessed in regions 5, 6, 3, and 4. I had the pleasure of interacting with teachers who prepared students for practical examinations in those 4 regions. And the issues that came out were basically uniform throughout. The first issue Joel dealt with as it related to the devices was common in every school, in every region. Every school, every region. And what I thought of during that time is that we're on the coast and we're having these issues. It made me reflect deeply on what's happening to the students who are in the remote areas. And reflecting on the question asked by the teacher just now as to what else can be done, I'm thinking based on my observation and what I actually heard from teachers is that as a government, they need to employ the use of the television stations, which is what we have, which is relatively cheaper than trying to provide internet access, because we have to be aware of our realities. There's certain parts of Guyana where you cannot access easily We have the village of Victoria. After the village of Victoria, it's Nabakalis. Is Victoria then Nabakalis? Okay, you'll have Victoria and Nabakalis side by side, Cove and John side by side.
Cove and John.
Yeah, Victoria and Cove and John side by side. But for you to get from Victoria to Cove and John, you just cannot step over to Cove and John. You've got to fly to Ogle, and from Ogle, you go to Cove and John. That's the reality in some of our interior areas. But those areas are accessible to radio frequencies, and you have some access to television. So that's one medium or two mediums that we can use, or that can be recommended to our policymakers that we can use in the interim, because we know not for how much longer COVID is going to be with us. And rightly, as Joel said, we cannot dispense with the chalk and talk. Chalk and talk has its place, but even when we get back to whatever semblance of normalcy we may resume to, we still would have to continue the use of technology, because that's the way the world is going. And at some point, we have to be able to say, well, yes, we're fully there, however long that may be. Well, back to the theater arts. I basically spend time assessing students who were doing drama improvisations, playmaking, where they wrote their own plays. And for the drama improvisation, they were provided with a stimulus, and they had to execute a situation 3 to 5 minutes. They were either tasked with doing it virtually or in person. Due to the COVID regulations, COVID protocols, if it's being done in person, it was a solo presentation. If it was being done virtually, it could have either been solo or a group, but you had to wear your mask, etc., etc. On 2 occasions, because of the poor level of internet, and this was on the coast, 1 5-minute presentation lasted about 20 minutes. Having to stop and start, stop and start, stop and start, stop and start, stop and start. And the students end up being so frustrated that we had to reschedule practicals for another day. I'm saying this to say that as prepared as you may be, when the actual time comes for technology to be put to the test, it fails. What do you do then? You have to resort to a plan B. So as much as we're seeing technology as the way forward, as much as that's being purported right now as, okay, the way to go, it has its limitations. And as such, we've got to plan accordingly. How do we do that? That's the next question. Tablets. Some time ago, the government had a policy where it was 1 laptop per family. And to date, I am still befuddled, may not be the right word to use, as to why a program was not put in place so that each child can be provided with a device. Even if you start with the children who are in the examination levels, because some already have, not everyone will need. Monies could have been budgeted for that, so that our students could be at a better level than they are right now, because we're talking here about loss with technology. Many of our students are lost, and I'm not sure whether we will be able to find them again. You spoke earlier, Joel, about 2,000 students dropping out of school in Trinidad. There's one school here in Guyana, the school to which I'm attached. You have in some classes, sometimes 25 students and 4 students online. Some days you have none, simply because of the socioeconomic level of the parents. They either cannot afford data, they cannot afford a phone. If there's a phone, it's the phone that the mother or the father uses to go to work. So when the parent gets back home, then some data may be in the phone, and then the work is downloaded from WhatsApp, because that's the medium most teachers have to use. They cannot even think of Zoom or Google Classroom. That's totally out of the question. And imagine 8 teachers sending work via WhatsApp. and you having to have the device available to have that downloaded so that the child can have access to the work. Let's just assume in some families you have like 3 children and they're all using that one device. Just reflect. What would you do had you been a parent in that situation? That's a part of our reality. How do we deal with that? So when we say lost in technology, there's some students, there's some families who are really, really lost. And I'm not even sure, even if we produce the best compass, that they'll be able to find the North Pole, even if you direct them to it. For teachers, what's the solution? Many of the drama teachers said when they have the face-to-face session, you see the children. They're eager to be there because there's a chance to act out, get rid of some of the stress of being at home, being cooped up, and not being able to be quote unquote normal. So with the theater arts program, you found that there are areas where you can quote unquote bypass technology and have some level of interaction. But working with Ministry of Education guidelines, working with the CXC guidelines where you have to observe COVID protocols, there's a gap, there's a limit to where you can go, and then there's this gap. What some teachers also opined is that they would have advised other subject teachers to use some of the strategies that are used by the teachers in drama, whether theater arts, whether dance or drama, to woo their students to the platform. So, okay, they would come online and you would introduce them to do some like breathing exercises. You'd get them to do some of the games, and okay, you have their interest there, they're excited. But the moment it gets to the mundane stuff, the content of some of the run-of-the-mill subject areas, you find that you're talking with them, it's showing there that Joel is online, but you asking Joel questions and there's no Joel. So even though you're there, you're not physically there. Those are some of the challenges that they would have encountered as well. One strange thing though, is that in Region 4, one of the teachers mentioned to me, no, Region 3, sorry, it was mentioned to me that the boys were more in favor of the online classes as opposed to the girls. And the boys were more, I don't know if it's because boys are generally thought to be more hands-on with technology and that kind of stuff, but whenever they're the online classes, the boys are generally there. The boys are there too, from beginning to end. But the issue with the girls, definitely not so. And it piqued my curiosity and it said to me, well, okay, I'm going to, as I go around to the different schools, find out whether the pattern continued or whether it was just like a one shot. So as I continue to do my external examinations coming up, that's one of the areas I'm going to look at to see whether there's a pattern as it relates to gender. I don't know if any of the teachers who were here or anybody else who would have had access to teaching online, if they would have noticed that as it relates to the male-female ratio, if there's a pattern where you have more males on than females or more females on than males. It was something that I never thought of until it was brought to my attention by the teachers. And I said, I'm wondering if this is something uniform, if it's just a one shot, and if it's uniform, what could have been responsible for it? If it's one shot, what in that particular circumstance could have led to that? The other thing with drama and theater arts is that drama has this therapeutic nature where in drama class you taught that drama has a didactic purpose. It teaches, it does all of these big words meaning just simple things. And because of its therapeutic nature, if handled correctly, it can be used as a springboard to push so many other subject areas. But then that would be that would be need for another discussion directly for that purpose. It's going to take up too much time for us to deal with that right here. But as it is where persons are concerned about their mental health and how to deal with issues as they arise, how to deal with the challenges that come up that they weren't prepared for, drama can be effectively used to some extent to mitigate some of these challenges. I'm not saying that is the answer to them all, but owing to the nature of the subject, owing to the nature of how it's done on the syllabus, owing to the nature of what the objectives of the theater arts syllabus is in terms of making you this ideal Caribbean person, because many teachers are not even aware that that's one of the key aims of the Caribbean Examinations Council when they set the syllabus. It's to make you, the student, after executing all your studies during this period of study, to make you what they term the ideal Caribbean person, because the Caribbean person is totally different from the North American person or the Asian person or the African person in terms of the goals set out by the Caribbean community. On one of our other discussions, we can probably explore that. But I want to end off by campaigning for theater arts as being one of the mediums through which we can mitigate some of the challenges that are found with coping with the mental health aspect of dealing with our online classes. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Shonda. I don't wanna say anything right now. I know this topic is it's hot. I really love what I'm hearing. And I want to hear from your next panelist. And if there's any questions from your audience, I don't know if I want to go now or you want to keep, but I do have questions for you and Sir Gonzalez. Thank you very much for your point.
Okay, thank you. I'm trying to find the particular screen that I want. Mhm. Okay, I think I'm gonna run through this quickly because I know we're all getting tired. I am getting tired. Can everyone see my screen? Yes, okay, good. So I focused a bit on post-pandemic and language learning. And in language learning, I'm speaking about language arts as well as second language learning. And I think Dr. Valda mentioned about the emergency remote teaching. So everyone was forced to teach languages online. And based on past experiences, I'm going to skip some of this too, but you can still do it. I'm going to put the link based on past experiences. One, find an online picture or emoji that best describes or best illustrates, represents how you feel about online language learning, and copy and paste that emoji you found on the Jamboard. I'm going to provide the link in the chat. Probably have to close out this screen in order to see the chat because I've not seen it.
Go to the present mode.
Yes, I also shared a link in the chat. So you can do that. In the meanwhile, I'll continue because I know we're pressed for time. All right, so you can find a picture online, whichever device you're on. I just like to be a little interactive sometimes. So post that picture on the Jamboard. That's a link to the Jamboard there, and we'll continue. I'll pull up the Jamboard later and see what you really think about or how you feel about online language teaching. All right, so I had to tech or not to tech. What are some of the things that influences whether or not a teacher might use technology in the language classroom? One is teacher preparation, whether or not that teacher was trained or have any previous knowledge of using technology. And it also aligns with student training, whether or not the platform that that teacher is using, if the students know to navigate it, or if those students will be trained to use that particular platform. Factors that influence technology adoption, it's either intrinsic, that has to do with the teacher's belief, whether they think that piece of technology they have to use is useful, their willingness to change, and their perceived ease of use. So not only whether they think it's useful, whether they see that it's easy to use. And extrinsically, it's computer self-efficacy, whether or not they're comfortable on the computer, subjective norms. If everyone thinks that Shauna should be using Google Meet, then I might be forced to use Google Meet because that's how people are seeing me. And that's how I feel that, okay, I need to adopt to what they think I should be doing. Also, collective facilitating conditions, whether or not you have technology support, training, time, and whatever level of technology is available to you. Decision making, I know you might not be able to see that clearly, but I tried as much to pull a picture from Means 2014 book that talks about online learning, research, and when, how, and why. So it talks about at least, I think it's 9 phases of decision and design making, and that is mostly focused on pacing, the modality that you have available to you, the student instructor ratio, whether you have 1 student, 5 students, 15 students, all of that would affect the decision that you're making on the platform that you might be prepared to use, the content of what you have to teach, and also online communication, whether it's synchronous or asynchronous, that might affect the technology that you decide to use. And also the source of feedback, whether you want persons to get immediate feedback, whether it's peer feedback or whether it's feedback from the teacher, as well as the assessment you're going to do, whether that assessment is going to be online, etc. That's just a quick overview. I didn't want to go much into that. One of the concepts that comes out of technology use is the idea of universal design. And with universal design, the idea is that when you make things accessible to persons with special needs or persons with disability, you're making it accessible for everyone. So the little cartoon thing that I have there, the guy is there in the steps, so only the persons on the step would be able to go up. If he clears the ramp, then everyone will be able to use that ramp to have access to the building. For example, sometimes if you use the disability access wheelchair access to get somewhere, you know, sometimes your hands are filled or something and you use that, not because you're in a wheelchair. So some of the things that we have to think about when we're using technology is accessibility. And in some of the platforms that we use, like Teams, that's paid, but the Google, which is free, you have screen magnifier, screen reader, high contrast mode. So if we're looking at what our students in the classroom might have, whether visual impairment, or whether you want to use the mono audio, so they're just hearing out of one side. So these are all things that is supported with Google. It's also in Teams, Microsoft Teams, but that's a paid something. So the Google, you'd have access to all of this, and also allowing students to have choices about the modes they want to present their work in. Like, for example, as Ms. Shondell mentioned, drama. You know, I love to give students the opportunity to, as I always went for the dramatic part if I was given that choice. So I love to give students that opportunity to control their learning or contribute towards that. What language learning apps do you know about? So it is throughout, I'm using things that you can also use as students and teachers in your classroom. So the first one was the Jamboard, that's part of the Google Suite. That is something that students can go pull a picture, talk about how they're feeling, or talk about something language related. This Mentimeter.com, the code, if you go to there and sign in the code 50204969. So if you go to Mentimeter.com, it will ask you for a code and you put in that code. You can probably tell me what language learning apps you know about. So this is an exercise for you right now to wake you up a bit. So I'm going to give you about a minute and then I'm going to move on from here. Someone can also pull that code and put it in the chat so that when I change screen, it's still available. You guys are out there and following me, right?
Yes, we are. Yes, we are.
Right, I'm just taking a room temperature because I can't see many of you because I'm in present mode.
Yes, yes.
All right, so tell me about the language learning
Yes,
apps
we
that
are.
you know. I think you're able to put about 3 choices. So if you know of a language learning app, you put that there in the Mentimeter. And then we'll see what our responses look like, because I'm going to go pull up these things just now for us to look at it. Okay, were persons able to access that? So Mentimeter.com, if you're asked for a code, that's the code you put in, and then you give whatever language learning app you know about or you have heard about. Yes, Mentimeter.com, and then it's going to ask you for a code or a join code. And you put in that code and it's going to take you to the question, which is this same question, and then you give a response. Yes. So it should say enter code to vote or something like that, but it asks for a code and that's the code you input. Do you have your answers in, Joelle? I can't hear you. Yes, thumbs up. Not as yet. All right, I'm gonna give another 30 seconds. If I have one or two people that have answers in, I'm gonna go ahead. And I can't see the chat right now, so let me know if you have the answers in. Let me put the code in the chat too. Okay, I'm
All
gonna
right, I got my
continue.
answer in.
All right, good, thank you. I'm gonna move along now. All right, supporting language learning. I was happy to hear everyone talking about the digital divide. The digital divide is something that affects us at every level of technology. And the digital divide must be taken into account when we're talking about technology. So there's the high, mid, and low technology societies. And based on which society you're in, then you have to adopt whatever work that you're doing to go with that. Again, community support is a really, really big one to go with that. For example, students here, I'm in Athens, not Athens, Greece, but Athens, Ohio, USA. Students were given Chromebooks as well as hotspots if they did not have internet access at home. And they also had hybrid learning, and then they had asynchronous some days because the district realized that students may have younger siblings that they have to look after if parents are still going out. So you had that day that you had some flexibility to get your work done by the night. So you technically had just probably a check-in in the midday, and then you had the rest of the day. You didn't have to be face-to-face with anyone, or you didn't have to be sitting in the classroom all day. So that's one of the choices that we had when we had in design. When I show that design, part of it is the asynchronous versus synchronous. Is like, oh, we're going to meet 3 times only and give the students 1 day off. So that as students, because everyone know there was more pressure, their mental health issues, they might have younger siblings to look after. So things like that. So they're not in class all day, every day. So we have to be cognizant of all the factors that's happening within a pandemic. We also had the opportunity of hybrid. So if parents were comfortable for students to go out to school, then you went to school for 2 days and then you flipped, the other students went for the other 2 days. So if you were in group A, then you went Tuesday, Wednesday. You're in group B, you went Thursday, Friday, and that Monday, everyone was offline. They just had a meeting, check-in and things like that. So what I have in terms of platforms, I just made a list because I know we're well aware of the majority of them. So you have the whole Google Suite, which is Google Meet, Jamboard, Translate for the language teachers. Translate works with Spanish, French, any language. You have Google Drive or Google Forms. Those are things that you can use that would give the students automatic feedback. If you don't want to mark 100 scripts, you do your form and you have the answer there and it's going to automatically filter the things in. You have Blogger, which is part of Google also, that you can use, and you just let the students blog their response. So they don't even have to see you that day. You set up an assignment, the student blog their response. In terms of voice, that's one of the things that you use to give students extra time to prepare. So they call a number, it's not your number, it's a number that Google provides, and they give their 5 minutes presentation in Spanish. So you send them out of class, you send them in the hall or they're at home, and they just call this number and leave a voice message. And the teacher now has time to mark, as well as the student has time to talk about whatever it is they have to prepare. Zoom that we're using, awesome. If you have access to breakout rooms, even better, because you can move around and look at what the students are doing and get a feel for what's happening and if they're on task. Then Flipgrid, I'll probably show you guys later. I don't want to move off the screen, but Flipgrid is a video thing that students can do a video and upload it in a response. So you set the question as the educator and the students respond with a video. You can either don't give access so that no one in the class sees the video until you approve it, and you can give individual feedback to that student's video, or peers can comment on it. So you have a way that you can set it. And I think it has up to 15 minutes that you can give the length for any assignment that you give. You have Microsoft Dictate, Transcribe, Read Aloud. For example, even if you did work and the students send it by WhatsApp, now you can open your Microsoft Word, put on the transcribe, either upload the audio, or you can use the Dictate, which is a recording, and you just play aloud and Microsoft Transcribe, pick it up, the Dictate, sorry, and you have the words there. Cater for accent, of course, if you're Guyanese, Trinidadian, whatever, you'll have to go in and correct some of the things, but the majority of the work would be there. You have Read Aloud for some students who are not comfortable reading. They can have the computer system to read aloud with whatever they would have typed in Microsoft Word. Duolingo for schools, you can set your classroom if you're teaching Spanish, French, Portuguese. You can put your students in a classroom and you assign work for them. Really, for me, it's like anywhere I travel, I always bring back either the ticket stubs, the something, a flag of the country, whatever culture that you can bring back for the students to have something authentic to hold and see. They remember more. Big books, students would create, they take like 4 sheets of cardboard and they lace it together, all the little things that you learned in CPC, book binding and all of that. You lace it together and you do a book of fruits, and these same books can pass on to the next set of students when they come. So you have things that you can build on. Then we have Kahoot, Quizlet, Booklet, Edmodo, Moodle, Nearpod, WordPress. These are all things that I use and that can be used in and offline. Facebook Live, I've used Facebook Live. I've created a classroom institute online that I help people, Spanish, French, Portuguese. I have the smaller group within that. So, and someone was talking about the whiteboard not being there. There's whiteboard fee. That's, you just put in whiteboard fee in Google and you sign up and get an account, and that's a free whiteboard. You give the students the code and they can sign in and you can see their whiteboard, but other people in the class can. It's like a teacher-student thing. So you put a question and you're seeing, it's like if you're walking around looking in their books, basically. Now that's all apps that can go for whatever area you're teaching, but specifically apps that for language learning, there's Duolingo, there's Coffee Break Spanish. I think it's only Spanish, French, and Italian. I don't think it has Portuguese, which is a Caribbean, one of the Caribbean languages that's assessed. But Coffee Break Spanish, it's a podcast. You can download the app to your phone. Duolingo, you download the app to a phone. So in addition for Duolingo for schools, there's Duolingo that individuals can sign up for. So you don't have to wait for your teacher to make a class. You have Translator. That is something that if you have English language learners in your class right now, like in Northwest, there's a high presence of Venezuelans, whatever, you can use the English to Spanish translation and you talk and that person is going to hear the Spanish option of what you said. So these are all things that can support parent-teacher relationship. Also, you have Translate, which is Google Translate. We know when we're teaching and the students taking long to answer us, we know they're on Google Translate, right? Or they use some kind of structure that, oh no, I haven't taught you that as yet. So you know that they jumped on Google Translate. We have Babbel, that's a paid something, Rosetta Stone. And then there's also lyrics training. Joelle, I think you would like that. It's songs and you're filling in the blanks for these songs in whatever language you choose, Spanish, French, Portuguese, whatever. So lyricstraining.com, you sign up, you get an account, and you can assign a song for the students. So they have to listen to the lyrics and fill in the blank. And then you can choose the language as well as you can choose the levels. If it's a beginner's class, you choose beginner, level, intermediate, advanced, expert. So the level of your classroom would guide whatever it is you choose. All right, technology and anxiety reduction. So for example, based on research, it's told that you should always talk to your students about anxiety. You can take a poll, you know, about when you first start teaching your class about anxiety and how it affects people, how it affects anyone, how it's based on the activity that you're doing and anything to do with that. Poll everywhere also is one of the things that you can use to do a poll. Mentimeter, the one that I just used, you can, oh, let's see, all those who are anxious today. So you can have a scale, you can have a word cloud, you can have so many things within Mentimeter or poll everywhere. They basically have the same function. But with poll everywhere, you can get numerous slides. With Mentimeter, you only get 2 slides in the free version. And everything free I use, I don't pay for Mentimeter. So more than likely, you'll just see if I use Mentimeter, it's 2 slides. The Foreign Language Classroom Anxiety Scale, which was created by and validated by Hurwitz et al. 1986, that's something that you can give the students to look through and say, here, I feel anxious when I'm called upon to read aloud. Some students might be anxious when they have to read aloud, but they're not anxious when they have prepared, you know, I do my homework, I'm gonna come and read aloud. But if you call me and you don't give me time, I might be anxious in your classroom. So the number of assignments you assign to the students, the time to do the assignments, choice of assignments type, as well as if you go through the course outline, the topics, students are aware of what's expected for me for this entire term. Then they will be more ready to accept a topic. They might know what's coming up next. They might read up before and all of that. This was supposed to be COIL collaboration. It's a COIL something, but you know, didn't write out all of the words. And then visual countdowns, reminders at the beginning and the end of the class. Always have a little piece on your board saying this assignment is due whenever. And you tell the students when they come in the class, when they're leaving the class, things like that. Self-awareness, I was mostly alluding to the social and emotional learning. Be aware, like Joelle, I love your example about the person wanting the water at the school. Be aware of your students, their social circumstances, whether they're hungry, whether they don't have a pencil, something that is gonna affect you know, how you can interact and relate with them. So basically my conclusions and takeaway: availability of technology, when you have reliable internet, the amount of internet you have, you know, that goes with a digital device. Preparedness for emergencies. After this COVID, teachers are going to be more prepared and they're going to be taking some of what they learned to do back to the classroom and including it. Economic sense, for some people, this is going to make sense if I do XYZ online instead of printing all these things for the students. So thinking about that, training for teachers and students, that's going to affect what the teachers are able to do as well as what students are able to do. And relationship. So Ladson Billings, a professor, well-renowned name for teaching Black American students and students from this appropriate, you know, sections, said that a good teacher is a good teacher anywhere. So when you're a good teacher, technology or not, you're going to make a way to connect with those students and to make them learn. And my present study, I just said that I would throw that. I'm here, but I'm doing a comparative qualitative case study of teachers' experiences with reducing oral anxiety in the second language classroom in Guyana and the US. And I've been doing interviews online, even though I'm not in Guyana. And that, for a comparative study, reduces the cost and everything. Question, comments? Thank you. And that is the book I was telling you about, Learning Online, What Research Tells Us About Whether, When, and How, and it's by Means et al. And that's the end of what I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Joel. Thank you, Ms. Carrington. Thank you, Shonda. Thank you,
Well, I know it is a mouthful, more than a mouthful. I know it is 95 degrees hot knowledge, and I know that book, Miss Carrington, that book is indeed it's a good book, and what teacher needs to know, how teachers are preparing to get out of emergencies. So I'm gonna open the floor for questions, comments, and then I am going to roll in the punch or two. Just raise your hands if you want to ask a question or two. And here are our panelists again. Miss Shauna Carrington Griffith. We have Miss Shondell Phillips. And here are our panelists again. And Mr. Joel Gonzalez. Okay. I want to say something. It says that the most lasting impact of the pandemic may turn out to be one that is invisible. One that is invisible. How your subject area can identify that invisible impact on the lives of the learners or teachers or your you're an administrator, the lives of your students.
Dr. Elliott, I can think of one thing off the bat. I've interacted with some teachers and students that are preparing for CSEC last year as well as this year, which I was happy to do. I've been out of the system for a while, and I was happy to interact with them. What I heard from teachers is that students would I'd ask, can I put on my mask? So some persons find speaking with a mask is better for them, while some don't want to use the mask. So now they're finding the mask as a way to hide when they feel anxious. So that's one of the things that I know that we'll rethink in terms of how students interact online with us. But all of a sudden they have internet problems, their camera is off and all these things. So it's a bit of anxiety as well as being placed on the spot. So some you would get more out of them with the camera off. So having that flexibility for me and understanding anxiety within the different contexts is something I would take away.
That is true, because Miss Shondell would have Miss Phillips would have mentioned the situation, and I think she would have touched on that invisible aspect, how they were able to tap in what is our drama, how they were able to tap in and pull it out and what is most interesting is like the males are the ones who are going after rather than the females, and indeed there must be what's happening, and the mask isn't a physical mask, but your subject needs to penetrate that mask. And I like how you were able to present some tools, some apps that can work. They don't only work in language, but you can use in any subject area. So thank you, Ms. Carrington. Chanel, you want to say anything to it? Joel?
Certainly. There's so much that I know that I can piggyback on when this whole thing is over. But one of the things that I know for sure that will remain with me for a very, very long time is the fact that the students, when they come to school, they always and they late, they always have an excuse. In my case, is the maxi come late, rainfall, there are no money to come to school. Now, what are they going to tell us when they're late for class? They found some new ways. The internet not working. They have no data. So sometimes now when I realize, I say I know what he coming with. I know what this one coming with. But to be honest, I have developed even a more closer relationship with them. Not only the students, because what I do, I have all of my classes on the parents on WhatsApp. So they know exactly what is going on in school. If they have something, it's easy for me to use to get to the parents because it's very common, cheap. So even to the parents now, even before this session, today is what? Father's Day. A parent calling me about half an hour before the session to tell me that the son they only have one phone in the house, and the son using the phone to text girlfriend and this, and he lied yesterday to say he had to come on for some class for 1 hour, and she want to know if the class was on for real, and there it goes. So I'm looking at how skillful these children are. They will put you on the spot, but they themselves don't even realize that you were there at one point. Even to my own children,
Yeah.
all of the things that they're trying, it's like they don't think we were once young too, and we know some of the things. But to round it off, these children are teaching us. These children, Miss Thornton Griffith, excellent presentation there. You opened my eyes to some things there with the lyrics training and so on.
Yeah.
But there are some things that even me, sometimes I struggle with when it comes to and I will call my son, bloop, bloop, bloop. The man fix the thing. All right, so I now have to play catch up. And that is one of the things as well that I'm going to take with me, is that I have to play catch up because it will run and leave me. And I'm not taking last. Okay, so thank you so much. Miss Phillips, I heard you mention something, I jotted down somewhere, where these students, they because of where they live, you said that they complain sometimes, some of them just, oh, you made mention of 25, a class of 25, and sometimes you will only see 4. Now,
Yep.
if you could have come close to me, I have to do like, if anybody from Trinidad here and they hear me, I want to pretend to be Terence Dial Singh, the Minister of Health. He said he shed a tear, right? That was meant to be a joke. But that touched me. That really, really touched me, because that is less than 5% of your class,
Yep.
of the class, right? And while we are thinking 2,000 dropouts in our entire country, here it is, we are looking at one school
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
that is below 5% when it comes to attendance in a particular topic. You see that? That is something that, okay, when I heard of it, it was like a wow moment for me. And then the reality kicked in that, you know what? Hey, this is you might be exposed to certain things,
Mhm.
but what you said there, it's like, yes, just wow, just wow.
Yep.
And as educators, it brings me back to what I just mentioned when I mentioned it in the earlies, when I said we are everything. We are the teachers, we are the nurses, we are the doctors, we are the not the caregivers, but we are the counselors, the priests, everything. They look out, they look forward. So I want to encourage you all of you who are working with these children, to continue to do what you are doing, because if not you, who? Or if not us, who? Who else can they call on? Who else can they depend on? You never know out of that below 5% that you're touching, whose life you would have actually saved. Sometimes I tell people, I am not into this. I believe teaching is a calling. Teaching is not about the money,
Mhm.
you know. One of the most proudest moments for me is when I walk the street and somebody says, "So you know, I passed my exam." Yeah, that is the proudest moment for me. And that is why I will always be a boastful teacher. I just tell them, I like to boast, but I like to boast about my students because I know that when I finish with you, if you didn't get through something wrong, and I will figure out what it is, because what I do from the formal regular schools, I don't stop there. I go and I catch them back on the evening, the polytechnic, and they would always ask me. They say, "So why I can't?" I said, "I can't stay home. I love my home. I love my family and everything, but after work, I just have to do that second job because that is the set that catches me more than the regular ones in schools. You see the ones on the outside, and I believe are not. But like I said, I like to boast, but I believe that is one of the reasons why they would always ask me how it is you can go in such a community and people look out for you, or they respect you, because you give respect, you get it. And sometimes, and most times, it has to come from here, from the heart. Whatever you do it from the heart, just as what you all are doing now. One day, somebody from that small group is gonna come back to tell you, and I know you all are accustomed to these testimonies. But that is something, Dr. Voller, based on your question there, that really, really impacted me from today's session, which even caused, I don't know how many members from the Ministry of Education are here. I have a lot of friends who are district education officers. I sent in invites, I reminded them and so on, but we're all busy, and then today's a day as it is. But I would really like for the by extension the government work a little bit more with the less fortunate. You know, um, we can never say
Joel,
we're doing enough.
Joel,
I'm listening.
if I may interject just a little there, as you were talking, one answer to the question as to how you can work in the depressed community, you should have simply said you're from Guyana. That would have been one answer.
Well, they don't even
But
have to ask. One neighbor always say, "I wonder why Guyanese like this," because she says she never met some Guyanese generally are like that. They are friendly, they're open. And one even pointed me to the movie To Serve with Love. I said, "No, I ain't so bad again." But she said, "Your personality is of such.
yeah.
There is nobody," she said, "there's so many other teachers that came from all over. And if you're absent for one day, everybody know that's how you come today." you
Mhm.
know so
Yeah.
again, this has to be my foundation, my roots. I remember those days of Shauna, Mr. Moffat, and all of you, I guess, would have remembered Mr. Samuel B. Moffat at
Of
Cyril Potter
course.
College. I
Have
believe we have
respect.
one of our
Have
colleagues,
respect. Have
Miss,
respect.
Have
yeah,
respect for the
respect, yeah.
Have
family.
respect. The man who takes marks from your assignment if you don't address him as Mr.
The first day he saw me,
I wrote his name on my folder, Samuel Moffat. -2. Have respect in Reading.
and
I must do that.
that is what made me who I am. The first time he saw me and he said Joel Gonzalez, and I answered present, the man took down his glasses.
What?
He said, "Joel Gonzalez?" He said, "You sure you are the right name? How a black man like you have that surname?" Mr. Pickett, are you there? I know we have another past student, Miss Griffith, Kenneth Pickett. I don't know if you can remember him, but
Yeah, I'm
KP
very much
is,
here.
is one of our past, our colleague as well. I'm sure you can remember Mr. Moffat, and for all those
Yes, I
teachers
do.
who are around, we did the foundation is what I'm talking about here that really made us who we are.
Joel, as you were talking about the 4 students out of the 5 students out of the 25, the issue is that in that particular area, the school caters to the students of the lower economic bracket. And even prior to the pandemic, I had a class the year before, English students, prepping them for exams. And I requested that they come an hour earlier in the mornings for us to get some additional work done because they were really very far behind. And we started, some came, some didn't. When I inquired, some had to wait until their parents came in from the morning hustle before they could have come out to school because they had to wait for lunch, breakfast, whatever. So I undertook to provide breakfast for the students for the days when we were there at school. And the attendance maximized right away. What happened as well is that there were other students who know that on these particular days, 11Y and